Welcome back to the Great Primeval Show. I am the Ark Minister, and I am joined by Ancient Realms and Hodgepodge. Today we'll be breaking down Episode 6, the final episode of Primeval Series 1. Also known as Future Foe in North America,
Der gnadenlose Jäger
in Germany, and
L'ultime traversée
in France. Written by Adrian Hodges and directed by Jamie Payne.
Again we see the extended scene from Episode 1, with Connor chasing Cutter and Stephen. Not sure that's quite what those are used for, Nick.
Shot.
It's a nice callback to the golf course from the previous episode, though. Maybe he's sad he never got to play.
Claudia Brown.
Ever notice Cutter almost always calls Claudia by her full name? Probably out of respect.
I've been thinking about Helen.
I gave up trying to predict Helen's behaviour when she swapped her marriage for a package tour in the Permian era.
Haven Holidays, sponsors of Primeval.
Do you still love her?
Being confused about Helen's rescue, Claudia seems like she's trying to gauge where Cutter is emotionally, trying to morally justify stealing Nick for herself, perhaps?
Ask me another one.
Coward.
As said last episode, Cutter will always have feelings for Helen, despite all her actions.
It's much less complicated when she was just the enemy.
Don't worry, she will be by Series 3.
If we're going to defend ourselves more effectively, then we've got to do something more than just react. We've got to discover why these anomalies are opening and then predict when the next one will appear.
The mystery of the anomalies is an intriguing part of the show, yet at the same time, I never want this to be answered. Being an unstoppable force of nature suits them better, rather than having a full explanation.
Are you going to tell me how?
I've got ideas, but I don't have any proof.
We never get a direct answer to Cutter's ideas here. Probably the closest thing we get to stopping or combating the anomalies from Cutter is the anomaly detector, but he doesn't know how to track anomalies until the next episode. It's possible he was thinking of making an anomaly prediction matrix based on myths and legends, but he kind of forgot about it after the cliffhanger of this episode until Series 3. I don't know.
See, I need more time.
Fine, how does Monday morning sound?
Also, look at these shoes Cutter is wearing. Fancy.
I haven't been sleeping well. Bad dreams.
Here we get the first instance of Claudia having bad dreams. We'll see several more later.
By the way, when those things were attacking us, you kissed me. On the lips.
I know.
You do know sexual harassment is a serious disciplinary offence in the civil service.
Mentioning the Anurignathus, Claudia fake threatens/flirts with Cutter regarding the kiss, and mentions sexual harassment. I swear she gets off on saying things like this. Technically, she sexually harassed him by first kissing him unprompted in Episode 1. Ugh, just already. This music gives me chills every time. You can also see the perimeter fence that's been erected around the site to keep civilians from accidentally stumbling in. Makes you wonder if the other anomaly sites were locked down like this. Really nice to see an anomaly reopen from a previous episode, which helps the world building of the show. We've had 6 episodes so far and 6 different anomalies. Temporary, permanent, fault line and underwater, spaghetti junction, aerial, and reoccurring. This is also the first time we hear an anomaly opening, as they are usually discovered already open. We won't see one open again until Series 2 Episode 2. This is set up to look like a Permian creature has arrived, but every following discovery reveals the truth. We get treated to this gorgeous creature visualization here.
No trail, no footprints, nothing.
We later find Helen arrived through the anomaly first, so it is possible her footprints were there, but Stephen probably wasn't looking for human tracks, or mistook them for the Special Forces soldiers' prints. Also, did the creature smash through the fence, or was it Helen? We see Nick staring at the anomaly that ruined his life 8 years ago. Little does he know, it's about to ruin his life again very soon.
We are introduced to the episode's creature, the future predator, stalking on the roof of the lion enclosure at Wellington Zoo. The brief glimpse of it creates intrigue before it disappears. The sound effects appear to be from a cetacean. The music is in the form of a stab, which are the sudden dramatic notes used as part of the Predator's theme in this episode, sadly lacking from any future appearance of the creature in the rest of the show. Still not clearly seen due to being partially silhouetted, the predator is instantly established as being ruthless and incredibly dangerous by targeting a lion as its victim. The lion, being kept in the enclosure, has nowhere to run and is defenseless as the predator ambushes from above. Really dramatic and serves as a fantastic introduction to the infamous predator. The lion enclosure exterior shot is in fact the former sea lion enclosure at Whipsnade Zoo, whereas the actual shots of the lions were filmed at the former lion enclosure at London Zoo. Since the future predator isn't actually a real creature, not that we know of yet anyway, this creature profile will be a little different. This is of course the first future creature seen in the franchise definitively, as the fictional parasite's home time period from episode 4 is unknown. It's a fantastic bit of speculative zoology, where bats have evolved into the apex predators of the planet after humans have been taken out of the picture. More on that in the future, quite literally. Rodents could have been an alternative choice, as bats and rats make up 3/4 of all mammal species, but using bats allows more creativity in its design. We aren't told explicitly which species of bat the predators evolved from. Vampire bats are a likely candidate, as they are one of the few species of bat that can walk. You can certainly see the similarities between the bats and the predator's movements. More praise to Framestore for their excellent animation. Though the predator wasn't always going to be a bat, originally it was designed as a reptile, but the producers thought it looked too much like a dinosaur, and it was redesigned by Walking with Dinosaurs veteran Darren Hawley. As a bat descendant, the predator's front feet possess 2 large claws, remnants of its wing fingers, having lost its wings when becoming more terrestrial. A smaller dew claw can also be seen. The hind feet are more dinosaur-looking with 3 toes. Modern bats have 5 toes, so it's unknown why they lost 2 of them. Whilst the arms and legs are long and slender, the body is somewhat stocky with a hump and line of short spines running down its back, ending with a short tail. One thing which seems to be missing from the predator's bat heritage are large ears to help it echolocate, as this is its primary hunting method, as it has no visible eyes, which only adds to the creepy factor. However, you can see the ears have evolved into the central hole in the predator's face. This modified ear is an adaptation of nose leaves that aid modern-day bats with echolocation. We regularly get to see creature vision whenever the predators appear, so viewers can get an idea of how it behaves and perceives the world. It's very well done, with sonar-like sound waves and pulsating imagery. It can even hear its victim's heartbeat from a distance. This visualization changes every series. Its general colouring is a mottled grey, which is fine for what the creature is, as this sort of colour could help camouflage it against rocks in the wild. Interestingly, the action figure got a patchy brown variant with lighter highlights, which may have been an early test coloration for the model but later scrapped. Odd that it still made it into the figure though. It's shown to be lightning fast in this depiction, which becomes less prevalent throughout the show's run, especially in Series 3. The future predator is easily the most iconic thing to come out of the show in its entirety, and the thing that most people will remember about Primeval, also having inspired numerous other creatures in other shows. A somewhat similar creature called the Night Stalker appeared in the speculative zoology book Afterman, A Zoology of the Future by Dougal Dixon, and may have inspired the concept of the predator's redesign. I highly recommend watching the Unnatural History channel's YouTube video on how the future predator could have evolved for a more in-depth analysis.
Okay. I'm a girl in a bar. Tell me I look nice.
Abby fails to teach Connor to pick up women. Their friendship has developed since the last episode as they're more comfortable talking to each other. Abby is either oblivious or ignorant of Connor's obvious infatuation with her. She's possibly only teaching Connor flirting to get him a girlfriend and off her case. This, however, backfires in Series 2.
Abby?
This is Caroline. Well, you've got lovely legs and fantastic...
So that just happened? Rejoice, Primeval fans, for this is the final instant of Creepy Connor.
Oh, I'll have a mojito, please.
2 mojitos, coming up. Barman.
This is the only appearance of Rex in this episode. One question that's never addressed is why the team doesn't return Rex through his anomaly to the Permian. I swear in the original broadcast there was a throwaway line about Rex being too acclimatized from being hand-fed and handled to be returned to the wild. Was this ever a scene, or am I imagining it?
Who do you think would win? In a fight between Wolverine and Spider-Man?
I said flirty, not nerdy.
That's entry-level comic book, Abby. It's light, it's fun.
But girls don't talk comic books.
Well, I've got news for you, Abby. Note Connor tries to kiss Abby here, but fails. Abby does a similar thing later.
He predicted the temporal fault lines, and he's been correct about the anomalies reoccurring. That's not just luck.
Interesting, as we've never heard Cutter speculate about recurring anomalies before.
Look, one day soon, an anomaly's going to open up, and thousands of these creatures, maybe millions, are going to come pouring through.
Did Lester just predict convergence in Series 5?
All this urban living's made human beings such lazy animals. Second-rate hearing, no sense of smell, no worthwhile instinct.
Say what you will about Helen, but this is true, biologically speaking.
What do you want?
Cold beer would be nice.
Crack open a cold one with the GORGs. Look, it was really hard thinking of a joke here, and this is the best I could come up with. Leave me alone.
Abby is still working at the zoo here. Nice to see her actually wearing her work uniform as opposed to episode 1. Call yourself a zookeeper?
Maybe you just ran away to join the circus.
Oh, whatever.
Or maybe it went to a private zoo. Apparently the lion did at least put up some sort of fight with the predator, as there is a small pool of blood on a leaf, which Connor collects for analysis. Also, how is Connor just allowed to come into the lion enclosure? The zoo looks to be closed, or at least very empty of anyone else. So what is he doing here?
He's a Home Office scientist. He hasn't got accreditation yet.
Helen asks Stephen to arrange a meeting with Nick and Lester. She knows they don't want to see her, so she mediates through Stephen.
But this is serious. 3 people have disappeared in the last 48 hours. I know what happened to them.
Interesting to see Helen being helpful here, but we all know she's got ulterior motives.
You know, you were always one of my better students. Not the very brightest, maybe, but so full of idealism and integrity.
We get some more backstory that Stephen was one of Helen's students, but for what subjects? This is the first official time we see Helen and Stephen's affair on display. We've only had minor hints previously.
Thank you. Touched.
I bet you were. Claudia begins to lose her sense of reality, or maybe reality is beginning to lose her. Interesting to see this. Wonder why the Gorgonopsid was what Claudia dreamt about. Likely because it was the first dangerous creature she encountered from an anomaly.
Such a cool scene here, showcasing the Predator's echolocating ability as it stalks Abby. Fun fact, we think the Predator is actually just barely visible at the base of this tree. This is an example of Helen saying they can camouflage in any environment. Interesting that the Predator is willing to take on a lion, but not an elephant, most likely due to their large size and noisiness. It was clearly stalking Abby before the herd of elephants moved in to cover her and block the Predator's advances. Maybe the clamped Predator from Series 2 Episode 6 should have taken note of this Predator's pachyderm predicament. We love alliteration here.
Thanks for calling back. No sign of the lion as yet.
Note the elephant in the warehouse doesn't react to the Predator. We mostly see the Predator on full display here, but the face is still obscured. Its stalking movements are beautifully animated here. Tim Parker says the lion is still missing before going missing himself. Abby notices Stephen and the others are acting strange. Another example of Abby and Connor being the younger members who aren't always included in the decision making. Another example of the Home Office having the fastest DNA testing ever.
Oh, I never said. The blood analysis came back from the lab. Most of it was from a lion, but some of it was from a bat.
Bats get everywhere.
Yeah, but that's a really weird DNA. They said they'd never seen anything like it before.
We get more details slowly being revealed about the predators. As Abby says Tim is missing, we see the newspaper confirming the other missing people.
Very nice group shot in the dark. It's very atmospheric.
Are you sure you don't already know what this is about? Sorry, what does that mean? She's your wife. You join the dots.
Lester still doesn't trust either cutter, but with Claudia being back on the team's side, she convinces Lester to meet with Helen.
Okay, fine, we'll do it her way. But if this turns out to be another of her manipulative little schemes, the deal's off and she goes straight back on the wanted list.
Make note of this for later.
You have a serious creature incursion. A highly evolved ambush predator. Intelligent, adaptable, and ruthless.
It's here that we get the first definitive yes that anomalies can open to the future. Cutter's response and reaction is so perfect, as is Lester's. It's such a chilling scene and really broadens the scope of possibility for the show, as future creatures allow for near endless creativity. Series 5 now withstanding.
Oh, look, hold on. What makes you so certain that it's not some lost species that's just disappeared from the evolutionary record?
Cutter makes a great point here, as the fossil record merely shows us a tiny glimpse of the past, as the majority of organisms leave no trace and are lost to time. The predator just happens to not be an example of this.
You know, I'm really beginning to regret not staying in management consultancy.
We get some background on Lester's past job in the Fire and Water novel.
Obviously, my first thought was to do as much as I could to help.
How public-spirited of you.
You could have redecorated.
I like it.
Low-key Doctor Who reference here.
Oh, you've redecorated. I don't like it.
This is the first time we see the Cutter's house. As to be expected, their abode has an air of eccentricity to it. There are a few fossil ammonites on some shelves at the back, plus lots of old books and folders, likely containing research and university papers. Wonder who played the piano in the Cutter household.
Anyway, you gonna tell me why you were lying?
No idea what you're talking about.
Well, you know, the others buy that line about you just want to help, but I've known you for longer than they have.
Having known Helen for years, Nick knows she's lying and gets her to admit that she was the reason the predators came to the present. Helen saying she still cares about Nick here could actually be genuine, or maybe it's more lies. Note Helen is playing with her camera here, and Nick doesn't pick up on that he'd found it in the Permian earlier.
Connor tells Stephen about the weird bat blood and the missing lion and Tim Parker. Stephen, of course, knows something is up and goes to protect Abby. This is the last time we see Cutter's laboratory and the Central Metropolitan University on screen. However, it does later appear in the novel Extinction Event. Abby is watching the sea lions when Stephen ambushes her.
Creep up on me like that.
I wasn't creeping. I was walking, normally.
Very subtle, but you can see that Abby goes to kiss Stephen before he muffles her and pushes her against the wall. Interesting, considering she said,
I fancied you for a bit, and now I don't, that's all.
In episode 3. Make up your mind, woman! We get our first proper look at the future predator. What a creepy and amazing design it has. Note how the predators are very often drooling. This may be due to their lack of lips. It looks fantastic and is a great detail they didn't need to add. Why are those sea lions making cetacean noises? Was this scene originally written with dolphins in mind, perhaps? Fortunately, the predator is distracted by the sea lions cruising past the window, so doesn't notice Abby and Stephen. Once the others arrive, it panics and takes off running away in another amazing shot. The sea lion enclosure was filmed at Whipsnade Zoo. Helen suggests using dogs to help detect the predator's lair, one of the few times she actually helps. Helen sizes up Claudia, but she's quick to rebut.
He's my husband.
You left him. Remember?
Whilst Helen is usually playful, when asked about the predator, she seems pretty serious.
To survive in the Permian, it's had to be highly adaptable, which is bad news for us.
What does this say about Helen, who survived in the Permian and other eras regularly?
Who knows? Maybe that's how humanity meets its end, by becoming the food source for a more successful species.
Interesting, though. This is kind of expanded upon in Series 3. The building they are in was filmed in the old elephant and rhino house at London Zoo.
Cool shot of the team and soldiers heading into the woods. Cutter is very clear on wanting to kill the predators here. Unlike the other prehistoric creatures, killing the predators shouldn't affect the present.
Shoot to kill. That makes a refreshing change. I was beginning to feel like a social worker.
Whilst looking in the woods, one unlucky Special Forces soldier picked the wrong tree to stand beside. Luckily, these dogs are protected by the unspoken rule of cute animals not being allowed to die on screen.
There's nothing!
Interesting to see that Ryan and the team are completely out of their element here for once. Usually they're pretty competent, but with the speed and aggressiveness of the predator, everyone's at a disadvantage.
Look up!
The music, sound effects and frantic camera shots panning across the forest and trees create a sense of panic before the predator is suddenly there, and I love how the camera tracks it jumping from tree to tree, just barely fast enough to keep up with it, which again shows how lightning fast it is. The predator jumps straight past Cutter, luckily not aiming for him, but instead opting to escape. Presumably it took the soldier it killed and stored it with the others, but this is unconfirmed.
We need a bigger gun.
Another subtle Jaws reference.
Was one step ahead of us all the time. Knew what we were going to do before we even did it.
Cutter presses Helen for information about the creature. Predictably, Helen doesn't really offer much help other than facts about bats and rats. You don't need cutlery for that kind of food, or to prove how tough you are. We all know how you live.
Dogs. The dogs went crazy before it attacked. What would make them go off like that?
It can't be smell. If there was a scent trail, they'd have followed it.
Hearing.
Sound.
They heard something.
It's using sound.
That's why it manages to stay ahead of us. It can detect physical movement before it's within visual range.
And the dogs, they detect a higher frequency, therefore they know when it's nearby.
Like echolocation.
High-frequency sound waves. It's like a sonar system. Some animals use it to detect prey.
Like a bat.
Very cool seeing the team deduce what the predator is and how it operates from all the clues.
That's it. That's it. This thing must be some kind of, I don't know, super bat.
This speculation is really fun, and always nice to see what they come up with. Not just within the show, but behind the scenes with this design. It's really creative.
The team's Toyota Hilux appears to be parked in the Wellington Zoo's car park. Abby is inside the Komodo Dragon House, filmed at the London Zoo. This is the first and only time the team uses an oscilloscope. It probably would have helped them in Series 3. An awesome and tense scene of the predator stalking Connor in the car. The direction is superb, with you only getting slight glimpses of the creature through the rear window before it smashes through the windscreen. Lucky for Connor he was in the back seat, and that the predator didn't attack through the rear window. Also lucky for the predator that it didn't cut its face on the glass. Abby sure got there quickly. I hope she locked the Komodo enclosure on the way out. She shouts at the predator, but it's locked onto Connor and doesn't acknowledge her until she throws a rock at it. Fun fact, Hannah's spirit actually hit the cameraman with the rock on the first take of this shot. Steven is also here now. He shoots the predator, but it doesn't appear to have any effect on it, showing how robust it is. Even so, it retreats once again. These three are lucky to be alive. Wonder why none of the team have invested in body armor. This might come in handy.
Anti-stab vest. Standard police issue.
I have so got to get one of them.
A double whammy of Star Wars references here. Also the final time that Star Wars is ever mentioned in Primeval for some reason. Maybe it doesn't exist in the new timeline. Abby's flirting with Connor here reveals he actually pays rent now.
As Helen predicted, the dogs led the team right into the predator's lair. Very cool to see alternate methods of tracking creatures. Shame they never used dogs again. This animal crate storage appears to be part of the Wellington Zoo.
Cutter! You need to see this.
You need to see this cliché. The three missing people are stored at the back of the warehouse for the baby predators to feed on. I wonder if the lion's body is also in there somewhere, or maybe they've already eaten it, which is a terrifying thought.
You can't eat a lion.
Don't worry, it tastes like chicken.
My god, it's given birth.
Now for part 2 of the future predator profile. This is the first time we see a baby creature in Primeval. Thankfully, they look distinctively different and are not shrunken versions of the adults. They still have the same general great ape shape as the adult, but their legs and arms are proportionally shorter and the tail is also stumpy. The major difference is that the baby's face is wrinklier, forming an upside down Y, and the areas where the eye should be are more bulbous. The baby predators use sounds from both squealing pigs and laughing hyenas. Throughout this episode, we get to see more and more characteristics of the predators. It seems like they form partnerships and share parental duties. They are highly defensive of their babies and will ruthlessly defend them at all costs. The babies are mostly defenseless, however we later see juveniles are highly aggressive like the adults. I really like how we get to see the whole life cycle and characteristics of this fictional creature. The future predators are more fleshed out in this one episode than any other prehistoric creatures shown throughout the whole show.
We've got company!
This is the third intense attack scene within 5 minutes. The father arrives to attack the intruders, and we get Wilhelm scream number 2 out of 3 in this episode. It's great how the predator is just there waiting for the guy to turn around and face his doom. Cutter grabs one of the babies to distract the predator away from the others. And now we come to the infamous greenhouse scene. Cutter opts for a gun to kill the predator, knowing full well that
Can't affect the past or the present.
He has no problems with this. His character makes a big deal about not using guns throughout the show, but this is the exception. You can see just how ruthless he can be, and this is a full character shift and meant to shock the audience. That it certainly does. This was one of the hardest scenes to film, as seen in the behind the scenes documentary, but it really paid off. The whole setup and the dramatic way in which Cutter shoots the panes of glass to disorient the predator before taking it out is perfect. The predator is still alive for a few more seconds after being shot in the head before, and like any computer mouse that requires new batteries, it clicks its last and dies. This scene was directed by the series producer, Cameron McAllister, because production delays didn't allow Jamie Payne time to film it himself. The dogs are barking at the baby predators like they're Terminators. Woof 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 woof.
We kill them.
This is the only time that we see Helen in the Home Office, outside of her incarceration, and it's quite jarring to see this anti-hero just standing there with the good guys. Helen and Nick both convince Lester a permanent mission to the Permian is the only option to protect the timeline. This would have been an interesting concept to proceed with, just guarding an anomaly in the past. The Cutters share a smile at each other, finally agreeing on something for the first time in 8 years. Claudia gets another moment of a frenzied state as she gazes into a bathroom mirror to find herself in the shape of an anomaly. It's unknown what the meaning of this is, whether it's Claudia just having bad dreams, or possibly it's the timeline foreshadowing Claudia's impending erasure. Or it could simply be a cool effect to help the audience grasp how Claudia is feeling. Exterior shot of the Cutter's house, which looks edited to be nighttime. Helen's up for having a good time, though Nick brushes her off and closes the door on her. This is clear to everyone except Helen perhaps, that them being together is never going to be a possibility anymore. This point will further be driven home by the end of this episode. The whole team shows up the next day to see the time travellers off. Even Lester is here. Wonder why they waited a day before venturing back into the Permian. They didn't know the anomaly would still be open, given how temperamental they are, so it's a bit risky.
Don't go. Stay. I think this is a mistake. I've got a really bad feeling about this.
It's gonna be fine. I'll see you soon.
Claudia warns Cutter about going, saying it's a mistake. Cutter brushes this off, however. You'll probably end up regretting that, Nick. This scene is mirrored in Series 3 with Nick and Jenny, with exactly the same camera angles. Too bad Nick is too stubborn on both occasions.
What happens if it closes while you're on the other side?
We wait until it reopens.
Well, considering it never reopens, you'd be there for a long time. Helen shares glances with Stephen, showing her interest in him now that Nick has officially rejected her. Abby also notices. Lester, of course, has a witty comment, this time referencing the moon landing.
You guys should make a speech. One small step for man, that sort of thing.
Maybe another time.
We finally get the summit of Claudia and Nick's romance as they embrace with a kiss. The music is an alternate version of Cretaceous Sea, which gives the right amount of glee and emotionally driven character interaction for the scene. Helen's reaction is so amusing, with her mixture of shock and probable envy, and possible enjoyment. Everyone else is pretty unsure what to do with themselves in the situation. Lester, of course, is incredibly displeased.
Well, that wasn't very professional.
Stuff professionalism.
To Nick, Claudia would be the professionalism. Whilst we know this obviously doesn't work out, it's interesting to speculate how a relationship between these two would have played out. Helen is already naturally thinking of a way to get her own back on Nick for this.
Nice to see the iconic La Palma scenery of the Canary Islands once more. Such a breathtaking location.
That was a very touching farewell.
Yep. Worked for me.
I suppose the object of the exercise was to punish me in some way.
Actually, it wasn't about you at all.
Very in character for the self-centered Helen to assume it was all about her.
The creature's autopsy proves beyond any doubt that it was definitely a male.
It's got to be female. It was nurturing its young.
Maybe in this species that's a job for the boys?
Better be. Because if not, it means the mother's still out there.
This only adds to the Home Office having the fastest DNA tests ever. Struth! This is a chilling plot twist and a really good way to engage the audience in the final act of this episode. The oscilloscope starts up, unbeknownst to everyone who don't notice it, and we see a glimpse of yet another adult leaping through the anomaly with everyone having their back turned away. Who's in charge of coordinating the lookouts here? We also see Stephen saying something mean to Connor. I wonder what he says.
Did you see something?
Nothing.
Is the anomaly getting weaker?
No change.
This is Claudia's last appearance, and it's done in a very subtle way. No one would assume that she were to simply vanish after this. It's all played like any other scene, and more focus is given to the mother predator. An excellent directing choice if you ask me.
The Permian team set up the camp we see in episode 1. Not quite sure why they bother, since they could just continue looking for the future anomaly. Perhaps they wanted a base camp to strike out from. Helen asks Cutter for some photos.
Hey, Nick!
Hey, Nick!
Paint me like one of your French gorgs. I will be amazed if this joke makes it into the final video. Note he only takes one photo, unlike the 3 we see in episode 1. Scootosaurus makes a background cameo here. The realization when Cutter notices what he's just done and how everything happened is great.
What?
The camp. It's the camp we found the first time.
We made it.
It's us. We are the intruders.
Camp we found was old. There was a dead body.
Well, you see, we've arrived back years before the first time we came here.
We get the payoff to the mystery of the people in the Permian from episode 1. A perfect time loop. Cutter double checks the chocolate bar, which he did in episode 1.
Chocolate? Chocolate! We've created our own past.
The baby predators squeal, perhaps from detecting their mother nearby, but the team think they've detected the anomaly. Helen reveals her true motivations of finding the future. Nick rejects Helen's advances. She missed her chance 8 years ago.
Mommy's very angry.
Are these guys all brothers or something? Why do they all make the same sound as they get brutally picked off by the predators? The mother opens the container and frees the babies. Neither predator nor human know the consequences here. Ryan takes a stand and manages to land a few good hits on it with his gun before it goes for him and he is savaged in front of a helpless Cutter. Meanwhile, Helen, being a natural survivor, sneaks away to hide in the trees. All seems lost when the predator turns its attention to Nick, now caught out in the open and ready to be turned into Cutter kebabs. when we get the triumphant return of the Gorgonopsid in all its therapsid glory. The Gorgonopsid eats almost all of the baby predators. Munchy crunchy nummy bat cakes. We don't have to keep that in either. This is one of the most epic battles ever put to screen. It's nice that this fight actually feels justified, as the mother predator is protecting her babies, and is not just for the sake of it. Two fearsome predators separated by millions of years of evolution, thrown together in a conflict that rivals any dinosaur showdown in the Jurassic movies. The two predators size each other up in such a cool showdown. Note the predator claws out the Gorg's eye. You can see just how intelligent the predator is to know to do this. Note this is not the same Gorgonopsid individual as seen in episode 1, as that one has both eyes. The Gorgonopsid finally catches the predator's arm and rears up for a last attempt to dispatch its future foe, see what I did there, and crushes it under its weight. The predator's arm shudders, then goes limp, as the Gorg gives an almighty roar of victory. Unfortunately, this is the last time we see the Gorgonopsid in Primeval. Ryan dies. At least he can die knowing his body will be found someday. Kind of.
Pine cones!
Helen looks at the corpses of the babies and deduces they must all be dead.
We should bury the men.
Let's hope their remains don't fossilize, because boy would that cause some confusion if they were ever discovered. Nice to see that Cutter is still caring about his fallen comrades. Ryan came to be quite an ally for him over the series.
The future anomaly must be here somewhere. We can still find it.
In the future, Helen Cutter's last great frontier.
It's interesting that they chose not to show the future anomaly here, instead only alluding to its existence. Nice bit of world building, and helps for a bigger reveal when it's finally shown in Series 3.
What have you got to go back for? That girl?
Yeah, about that. We get a legendary shot as it's revealed. Two of the baby predators have survived. The fact that the Cutters are still in the shot as they unknowingly leave these Chekhov's guns just rubs salt in the wound. Helen wasn't very thorough in her checking. This one, or rather these two mishaps, seem to be the cause of the timeline shifting in subtle ways we don't understand. Thanks, Helen.
The team is still waiting for the expedition to return. Interesting that they've been standing here all day, as it was morning when they left, and as seen in the next episode, it's nearly evening.
Captain Ryan didn't make it, and all his men are dead.
You can see that this has an impact on everyone, as they hang their heads in sorrow. Poor Tom Ryan, the second casualty in Series 1, and the second person called Tom who dies. If I had a nickel for every time a character called Tom died in Series 1, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Hang on, I think I did that joke already.
Hello. Now that's got to be the real boyfriend. Oh no!
Helen really knows how to mess with people. She could have just left, but instead drives the conflict which starts next series between Nick and Stephen.
What an extremely awkward moment.
Love how Lester still tries to steal the scene with his dry wit. Really insensitive, but not meant in a nasty way.
How could you keep that from me for so many years?
There was no point in saying anything. It was a long time ago, in the past.
The past has a habit of coming back these days, doesn't it?
Nick looks really defeated here. Not only has he just lost Ryan, who he came to respect and work with, but now Helen isn't staying, and she and Stephen have been having an affair. Bummer day, and that's not even the last of it. Credit to Stephen though, he does decide to stay after rejecting Helen's offer to travel with her.
You know, I'd forgotten, Helen. Sometimes you can be a real bitch.
With nothing left to stay for, Helen departs back into the Permian. She likely went back in search of the future, and presumably found it before she reappears in Series 2, but it's very unclear. Interesting also that Lester and the soldiers don't try to stop her from leaving. She's technically not on the wanted list, as Lester said earlier.
Where's Claudia?
Claudia?
Where's Claudia Brown?
I don't know anyone of that name.
Looks like Cutter just got cock-blocked by the timeline. In all seriousness though, this is intentionally a very jarring way to set up a cliffhanger ending in the next series, something that none of the viewers expect. Obviously we've seen that a couple of baby predators survived in the Permian, and that Claudia's been going through some mental trauma ever since she was knocked out by the Pteranodon. But it's difficult to connect them together, so even with these hints, it's surprising and shocking. You really feel for Cutter here, as his whole world has been turned upside down. Nobody has any recollection of Claudia except for him. Only Helen would be aware, but she leaves before this revelation happens. I wonder how different the story would have gone if she'd stayed for a moment and noticed like Nick did. Cutter refuses to believe it and grabs Lester by the jacket. One of the few times in the show that Lester appears to fear for his life. Only predators and angry Scots will do that to the man. Finally he realizes that this is reality, and we hear the Gorgonopsid roar echo through the anomaly as Cutter exclaims,
Something that we've done has changed the past, and she's not here anymore. Oh God. Oh my God.
What has happened? What went wrong? Where's Claudia gone? The episode cuts to credits and we have to wait and see until Series 2. In closing, Series 1 takes place over 2 to 3 months, and this episode takes place over 3 full days. And the next episode starts immediately after this one, making these the only true two-parter episodes. Join us next time for the breakdown of Episode 1 of Primeval Series 2.
I kind of saw it on the page when Jamie Payne, the director, showed and said, this is what we've come up with, and I kind of went, oh, goodness, you know, because it looks terrific, and it looks, you know, it's everything I kind of hoped it would be, because it looks like it could actually be a proper animal.